Coming up on today's edition of Locked On Eagles, a former Eagles legend from the 2017 Super Bowl championship roster is hanging up his cleats at the age of 34 after 13 NFL seasons. We'll get into that, as well as if the Eagles are going to make another significant move this offseason, and they will, between trades, free agency, and the draft. What singular move is going to have the biggest impact on the Eagles and their record in just 2022 alone? We'll get into that coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Louis DiBiase, host of your only daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, getting into today the news that former Eagles all-time great safety Malcolm Jenkins has announced his retirement from the NFL at age 34. Malcolm Jenkins was the leader of the Eagles defense and the leader of the football team, both on and off the field, for 6 incredible seasons from 2014 to 2019. An incredible career from Jenkins, won 2 Super Bowls, one with the Saints when he was a rookie back in 2009, and then, of course, the key one in 2017 when he was the heartbeat of the Philadelphia Eagles. And you can say, yeah, Jason Kelce at center, Lane Johnson, Jason Peters, Carson Wentz, and Nick Foles, Zach Ertz, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Rodney McLeod. There were so many instrumental key pieces of that Super Bowl team that were leaders both on and off the field as veterans, all-time greats, guys that might have their jerseys up in the rafters of Lincoln Financial Field one day. But to me, nobody held that team together. And not just in 2017, but from 2014 to 2019, like Malcolm Jenkins did. The impact he had in Philadelphia, both on and off the field in those 6 seasons, are incredible and should never be forgotten. You would not have been able to win a Super Bowl without Malcolm Jenkins. It starts with number 27 on defense. The amount of hats that he wore on that defense, they haven't been able to replace him since. What have we been saying on this show for years now? What has Gino Camilleri, my co-host, been dying for, begging this team to select a Swiss Army knife safety like Malcolm Jenkins, who could not only play deep safety and roam the field in cover 1, cover 3, cover 2, play in the box as a run stopper, shadow tight ends, and running backs like James White in the Super Bowl, top tier tight ends as well. Like back in the day, Jimmy Graham, Rob Gronkowski, George Kittle, Travis Kelce, those type of players that are Swiss Army knives on offense. Malcolm Jenkins was the antidote to that on the defensive side of the football. A former corner as well, considering all the bad luck the Eagles had and bad cornerback play they had throughout Jenkins' tenure. He really made up for the losses and just the lack of talent they had in the secondary, especially at the cornerback position. It has been something they have not been able to replace since 2019 is Malcolm Jenkins and his you can't put a price tag on what he meant to the Eagles in those 6 seasons. And again, there was a lot of bad cornerback play over the years. And, you can say that the Brandon Cooks play in Super Bowl 52, taking out Patriots wide receiver Brandon Cooks in Super Bowl 52, is the most memorable moment of Jenkins' career with Philadelphia. And I would probably agree, without Jenkins taking out Cooks, do the Eagles win that championship? Cooks was destroying the Eagles secondary. He was tearing apart Ronald Darby, Jalen Mills, Patrick Robinson. They didn't have an answer. Jenkins' answer, when Cooks turned back upfield, I'll never forget that hit. One of the hardest hits I've ever seen live. Haven't seen anything close to it since. And he took Cooks out of that game. Not that you ever want to root for an injury from a player, but Jenkins making that play, I think, was instrumental in the Eagles winning a Super Bowl. But again, to go back to the bad cornerback play that Jenkins really covered up, I go back to another memorable moment the year after the Super Bowl, 2018. And this again shows to me the leadership of Jenkins and just how he was the glue of that team. The Eagles are coming off their worst loss of the Doug Peterson, Carson Wentz era in New Orleans against the Saints Sean Payton and Drew Brees blow that team out of the water. And actually at the end in garbage time, Sean Payton dials up a wheel route down the field to Alvin Kamara. Malcolm Jenkins is in coverage. Kamara catches the touchdown, and Jenkins actually flipped off Sean Payton. They're coming off that loss. They're 4-6. It looks like they're going to miss the playoffs. People are talking about how the Super Bowl might have been a fluke. Carson Wentz might have been a fluke. They're playing the Giants at Lincoln Financial Field the following week. They're down by 2 scores. Eli Manning and the Giants are driving down the field again in Eagles territory with the half about to expire. And Malcolm Jenkins makes an interception that saved the season. And I'll never forget that play in that game because, yeah, again, the Cooks hit, the pick 6 against Tom Brady in 2015. There's so many different moments that you can remember from Jenkins, the forced fumble touchdown in 2019 against the Giants to clinch the NFC East. There's a lot of memorable moments from an all-time Eagles legend. But that game, to me, just represented what Jenkins meant to this team. Like, he was the glue. When things got bad, he was the guy they could always go to. He was the Iron Man they could always rely on. Because in that game, their cornerbacks were Devonte Bosby and Shandon Sullivan. And that happened a lot throughout Jenkins' time in Philadelphia, not just because the Eagles didn't at times have talent at cornerback and other positions, but we saw the catastrophic, historic amount of injuries the Eagles had from 2017 to 2019. We have never seen anything like it. I don't know if we'll ever see something like that again, what the Eagles had to overcome from a health standpoint. But one person that was always there when everything else was going wrong at corner and linebacker and injuries on the defensive line to quarterback, every position. Heck, even safety, Rodney McLeod went down multiple years in a row. The one guy you knew, the guy that has led his team on defense and snaps in every year since 2014, Malcolm Jenkins. Check out this tweet from Jeff Kerr, my good friend over at CBS Sports. He said in 6 years with the Eagles, Malcolm Jenkins missed just 91 defensive snaps. 91 over a 6-season span. He played with the Eagles in 98.6% of the snaps, including a streak of 2,651 snaps that ended in 2020. 6,407 out of 6,498 snaps. Also played all 411 postseason snaps, a total of 98.68% of defensive snaps. That was Malcolm Jenkins. He was Iron Man. When you had every other key piece go down at some point, you could turn to Malcolm Jenkins to be a cornerback, to be a linebacker, to be a deep safety, to be your leader when things were seeming like they were just too much to overcome. The Eagles have overcome some insane obstacles to make the playoffs in 4 of the last 5 years with these late season runs. And I think without Malcolm Jenkins, none of that happens. Without Malcolm Jenkins, there is no Super Bowl 2017 banner in Lincoln Financial Field. There is no statue of Nick Foles and Doug Peterson outside of the stadium. Malcolm Jenkins is a player that I've compared to the Eagles situation now over and over again over the last 2 years because he's an invaluable player that you desperately need on defense, especially in the modern day. And they have not been able to replace him, and they need to find somebody like Jenkins. Kind of like after they lost Brian Dawkins. It took years. Quentin Michael and Macho Harris and Nate Allen, Kurt Coleman, Patrick Chung. It took years to replace Dawkins to the level that Malcolm Jenkins did. And I don't think he'll ever be seen the same as Dawkins. I don't know if anybody in Eagles history will. Not even Nick Foles. Nobody. But I think Malcolm Jenkins, when you talk about the greatest Eagles of all time, you have to mention Jenkins with the other legends on that Super Bowl team. When you mention Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham and Jason Peters and Nick Foles, Zach Ertz, Malcolm Jenkins is right there. I don't know if they'll ever retire his number. I don't know if it'll get that far. I believe actually they've already given out 27. I'm not sure if that's the case. Oh yeah, it does. Zach McPherson. So they're not going to retire Jenkins' number, but that doesn't matter to me. He is one of the greatest Eagles of all time, and it was an incredible career. Even the last 2 years with the New Orleans Saints, he was a player that the Saints relied on a ton. Again, he led the Saints in defensive snaps the last 2 years, even with another star safety on that defense in Marcus Williams. Jenkins was always the glue. And just to see the role model he was off the field as well, in social justice, there was just so much to admire about this player. Versatility, character, speed, just power, hard hitting. Ask Brandon Cooks. I don't know if Cooks ever left that field after that hit in Super Bowl 52. Congratulations to an Eagles legend, Malcolm Jenkins, on a historic career. 34 years old. He is hanging it up. And again, Eagles history would not be the same. The story of the Philadelphia Eagles could not be told without Malcolm Jenkins. Today's edition of Locked On Eagles is brought to you by the best tasting protein bar on the planet. It's Built Bar, covered in 100% chocolate. It's soft. It's easy to chew. It's all the flavor of a candy bar, of a Kit Kat bar, a Nestle's Crunch, Hershey's, Reese's Cup, whatever your guilty pleasure. But it is none of the guilt, because Built Bars, while they have a flavor delicious for everybody, it is far more healthy. None of that guilt from a candy bar. 130 calories in most Built Bars, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. And again, guys, you got to get in on these delicious flavors. You could bring it to a movie theater like a candy bar, and I would not bat an eye. The flavor, I'm telling you, and sometimes this is not the case with chalky protein bars. Built Bar, they have changed the game. Mint brownie, coconut almond, and new for this month, they have white chocolate, cookies, and cream. Also, where are you going to find a protein bar that has a marshmallow-infused protein bar? That's right. They're fluffy. They're marshmallowy. They're covered in 100% real chocolate. They're an incredible treat. They've got cinnamon churro flavors, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. Normally, this is the time of year that most people have ditched their New Year's resolutions. Not this year. We are going to stick to eating right, and it's thanks to Built Bar. Head over to Built.com today. I'll get you 15% off your order when you use the promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order of Built Bars at Built.com. All right, Eagles fans, welcome back into this Wednesday edition of your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, Locked On Eagles. I'm Louis DiBiase, riding solo for the day, and thank you for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Make sure you're following the Locked On NFL podcast, Locked On Experts, covering the biggest stories across the NFL every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. There's so much news. It feels like each and every day with the NFL. It's free. Locked On NFL. You can find it on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. It's free and available wherever you get your shows. All right, so we talked a lot about Malcolm Jenkins, who retired after 13 years in the NFL, 6 incredible career-high seasons with the Eagles. Let's be real. Malcolm Jenkins was a Saint twice. He won a Super Bowl with New Orleans. He was a damn good player for them in his, rookie contract, as well as the last 2 years with NOLA. But Malcolm Jenkins, to me, looking back on his career, he's a Philadelphia Eagle. All 3 Pro Bowls he made in the NFL throughout his career were in Philadelphia. He was just a way better, more versatile player with the Eagles. The Eagles are left trying to find that player still. Since they lost Jenkins in 2019, as I said in segment 1, they have not been able to replace him. That's going to be a big focus this offseason. It already has been. They tried to get one of Jenkins' teammates, Marcus Williams, in free agency before he went to the Baltimore Ravens. They're still, they brought back Anthony Harris. They're still searching for that safety to go along with Harris and Marcus Epps this year. Maybe they bring back Rodney McLeod. Maybe they take somebody high in the draft. It's going to be a priority. What are the other priorities for the Eagles still this offseason? Free agency now, we're a couple weeks in. The Eagles have signed, linebacker Kazir White, Hassan Riddick, the linebacker / pass rusher, wide receiver is Zach Pascal. It feels like most of the big things they were going to do have already happened, but you still have the NFL draft in less than a month now, which is insane to say. And the Eagles are sitting here, and we always knew, as we've said on the show, the draft was going to be where they made their biggest impact this offseason, considering they have 3 first-round draft picks and a second-round pick as of right now. So the question I want to pose now with this next topic is, considering, again, free agency still isn't over. The Eagles have made a number of key moves throughout the years after the draft and free agency in June, right? Well, Garrett Blount comes to mind, Steven Nelson last year. You can still make moves for a whole nother 4 weeks before the draft. You have the draft as well. There's still a lot of talent acquisition to come for Howie Roseman and Philadelphia. So my question is right now for you guys, and I pose this on Twitter. You can answer it at LockedOnBirds on our Twitter account. What player, just one singular move, could the Eagles still make this offseason that would have the biggest impact on their 2022 outlook? So not their long-term outlook, not even over the next few seasons. When it comes to the one move they can make still through free agency, through a trade, through the draft, that would make the biggest impact on their win-loss column in the 2022 season. Because although the mindset in the draft and free agency and trades shouldn't only be about 1 year, I do want to talk about like what move to come could impact this roster next year the most. And of course, this is removing quarterback from the equation because quarterback impacts things more than anything. So what is it? Like, is it somebody they could trade for? Is it, DeVante Parker? Is it Laviska Shenault? Is it moving up in the draft for, Ahmad Gardner or Jermaine Johnson from Florida State, an edge rusher, a cornerback, a wide receiver? Is it getting one of the Ohio State kids, Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave? Which move would make the biggest impact? I posed this question on Twitter, and, I think a couple thoughts came to mind for me. Again, it's only about 2022. Two moves, to me, would have the biggest boost to their record in 2022. It's adding a Malcolm Jenkins and again, that's easier said than done. Malcolm Jenkins is one of the greatest players in franchise history, as we all clearly know. But adding that safety or linebacker, that versatile Swiss Army knife player on the second and third level of the defense, would be the biggest boost, again, outside of quarterback in 2022. A versatile second-level player, and maybe that is Kazir White. I think White does offer a lot of the things that we're describing that this defense has needed since Jenkins left. At linebacker, at safety, they have not had that player. Kazir White, I think, can do a lot of those things, but I think whatever linebacker or safety they draft, and again, this is hypothetically speaking, assuming right now that they keep all 4 picks in the first 2 rounds. Because if the Eagles do not keep, let's say they move up, or let's say they trade back for a 2023 first round or second round pick, and they only have 2 or 3 picks in the first and second round, at least 1 or 2 of those picks are going to linemen. That's just what the Eagles do. So this is hypothetically speaking that they have all their picks. I think whoever they take between, Penn State safety Jaquan Brisker, Utah linebacker Devin Lloyd, Georgia linebacker Nakobe Dean, Baylor safety Jalen Petrie, Georgia safety Lewis Seen, or even we heard the report a couple days ago, not a report, but more a rumor, an opinion from Daniel Jeremiah and other NFL draft insiders. They've heard that they think Notre Dame safety Kyle Hamilton could fall outside the top 10 because he ran in the 4.6 and 4.7s at the combine and at the pro days. They believe that those combine numbers were quote unquote juiced, and that normally, not that they don't think Hamilton should go in the top 10, but they don't think he will because there hasn't been many safeties that ran past a 4.6, slower than a 4.6 in the 4.7 range, and have gone that high. If the Eagles can add, if they can move up a few spots for Kyle Hamilton, or if they can take another versatile player like Jaquan Brisker, a Devin Lloyd, Nakobe Dean, Jalen Petrie, I think that move would make the biggest impact next year because it's the one player they right now are not guaranteed to have. I think wide receiver this year, if you brought in Treylon Burks or Drake London, or you traded for Devonte Parker, it could have a huge impact on the offense. It could allow you to throw the football more. I think it would help Jalen Hurts develop a whole lot more. Not saying that, a third receiver for this offense is going to fix things. To me, it's up to Hurts' development on his own. It's up to the weapons in-house, but it could help. But again, that's my point is they have Devontae Smith. They have Quez Watkins. They have Dallas Goedert. The improvements that Hurts needs to make, it really isn't a direct result of not having weapons. Last year, not having open receivers, most of the time to me was not the problem with Jalen Hurts. A lot of the time it was missing the guys he already has on offense. So while I would love, and I think this team still needs and wants another receiver, they have a ton of pieces there. Even an edge rusher like Jermaine Johnson from Florida State, or a Trayvon Walker, if you added an interior defensive lineman like Jordan Davis. I don't know. I mean, again, this is only for next year. You have Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox is back on a 1-year deal, Hassan Ridgeway. You brought back, or excuse me, not Hassan Ridgeway, Milton Williams. You have Hassan Riddick. That's the guy I was going to mention. Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham coming back from a torn Achilles, Derek Barnett on a new 2-year deal. Yeah, you have Kazir White, you have TJ Edwards and Davian Taylor, but you don't have a guaranteed difference maker at the linebacker position. You have some really intriguing options. And again, some players that are all coming off career years, but you don't have that bona fide star that you know is going to be not just, maybe not a negative for the defense, but he's a game changer, right? Davian Taylor could be a game changer. Kazir White at times has been a game changer for the Chargers and could be for the Eagles. But it's one of the spots you don't have a player there guaranteed, like you knew you had with, Nigel Bradham at times. And at safety, for sure you don't have that guy, like you did with Malcolm Jenkins, like you did with a prime Rodney McLeod. Anthony Harris last year, he didn't get killed all the time, but for most of the season, like, he was an irrelevant piece to the puzzle. He never really got killed over and over again. He wasn't, Bradley Fletcher bad, or, at safety, some of the disasters they've had, like Patrick Chung, Jaquan Jarrett, he wasn't that player, but they don't have a difference maker like, Devin Lloyd could be, or Kyle Hamilton, or Nakobe Dean, Jaquan Brisker, one of those safeties or linebackers that you take with maybe that 19th overall pick, that 51st overall selection in the second round. I think that's the player that right away in 2022 impacts your team the most. They'll allow you to do things just more diverse, more creative on defense. You're going to be way more multiple with not just having to run deep cover 2, have everybody play off, play certain ways because you don't have the personnel, as sometimes Jonathan Gannon, the Eagles defensive coordinator, alluded to last year as an explanation to why the Eagles were such a vanilla defense for the majority of the season, especially when they played good quarterbacks. Like, they didn't have this player. Hopefully, if they added one, Jonathan Gannon would be able to do more on defense. He would be able to. The question after that would be is if he's willing, or if that really more so is his actual philosophy. Put his feet to the fire, get him a player like this and say, go do things sometimes the way the Eagles did things with a Malcolm Jenkins. Run more dime, run more cover 3, cover 1, be more aggressive consistently, especially when you play, good quarterbacks. I think one of these players at linebacker or safety could have the biggest impact on the Eagles defense and as a whole, this team in 2022. Taking a look at some of what our listeners said, we've got Andrew Booth as a good confidence booster for somebody, the Clemson cornerback. See, again, I really want a cornerback in the first or second round, but when you have Darius Slay and Avonte Maddox in-house already, is Andrew Booth going to make the biggest impact for your team compared to these other options in 2022? Gino, my co-host Gino said trade for DK Metcalf. Yeah, I think that would definitely make more of an impact than what I'm even talking about, but DK Metcalf's not coming to Philadelphia. Why would he sign off on a trade to Philly when, if he's going to be traded, the Chiefs are going to be in on that. The Packers are going to be in on that. I don't think that's happening. Gino is right, but that's a pipe dream. Jamal says the answer is Devin Lloyd just for 2022. Yeah, that's what I said as well. We've got Javento says the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, the free agent safety, is still on the open market. I agree. Again, I think safety linebacker is the theme here. Damon says DeVante Parker. DeVante Parker would be, I think, a great piece to the puzzle on offense. But again, I just don't know if a third receiver on this team is making a bigger impact than what somebody like Kyle Hamilton could do. Our good friend Lawrence at Uncommon Curtis, he says he wants Jaquan Brisker, but it depends on if Gannon is going to have safeties parked a mile off the ball or not. And I'm really glad he said that because, again, that's my question. If you add these players, you don't have to do that anymore. It would impact your defense in a much more creative way. But is that just Gannon's philosophy in general? Would he still have these players parked super deep? Because if that is the case, then yeah, safety doesn't make as big of an impact as it did in 2014 to 2019 with Jenkins and McLeod and, other players, because you might be using them in a different way. Like when they're just sitting back there 3 miles down the road and the ball's never going over there, like they're making a little impact. They're making sure quarterbacks don't throw deep, but they're not impacting the field of play nearly as much as they should be or as they could be, like other defenses use those safeties. I don't think that would be the case, though. If the Eagles have somebody like a Brisker, a Petrie, a versatile player like that, they're going to want to use them and have them wear many hats like they can. If you can be multiple in the NFL, I don't know why you wouldn't want to be. Coming up next, guys, this is an interesting conversation that is leading me to another question. Like, again, in the hypothetical world, the Eagles have 4 picks in the first 2 rounds. And let's say 2 of those picks are going to go to linemen, right? The Eagles believe in the trenches. They're always going to invest most of their big-time money and significant draft capital at the offensive line and defensive line positions. So if they have only 2 other picks to make moves at other spots, what are the 2 positions you want to be guaranteed to see be selected with those other 2 picks in the first 2 rounds? That's coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. And guys, today's show, it's sponsored by RockAuto.com. Save time and money when choosing Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or a car dealership when you have RockAuto.com? It's a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Their prices are reliably low for every customer, and they have everything you can need, way more than your local chain auto parts store that has only the brand that their warehouse happens to carry. RockAuto.com, they have, again, everything you need. Brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. Head over to RockAuto.com today and see all the parts available for your baby, your car, or your truck. Save money with how much gas is right now. Make sure you write down Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit RockAuto.com today. All right, Eagles fans, welcome back into this Wednesday edition of your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, Locked On Eagles. Thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. I am Louis DiBiase, riding solo. Gino will be back tomorrow. He's coaching lacrosse, so sometimes in the afternoon. He's a little busy. He was at the Colorado State Pro Day today, which was interesting to see Trey McBride running the 4.5s. He said he saw some people down there for Philadelphia. Who knows? Maybe the Eagles with one of these 4 picks that if they keep them in the first and second round, maybe they go tight end behind Dallas Goedert and revamp that 12 personnel package on offense and take somebody like McBride with the second round selection. Not sure what they could do, but that's the questions that we're asking on today's show is if the Eagles keep at least 3 or all 4 of these picks in the first and second round. Number 1, the question we posed in segment 2 was what position, what player and position could they take in the draft? Could they trade for? Could they sign still in free agency that would have the biggest impact on this team's record in just 2022 alone? A lot of safety talk, a lot of linebacker. To me, honestly, the 2 biggest needs still of this team overall, and especially on the defensive side of the football. Some wide receiver talk as well. But I do think getting that versatile second and third level player, and maybe that is Kazir White, but getting another one, especially at safety. We talked about Malcolm Jenkins today, getting that kind of player, maybe not to that caliber, but to try to get that potential of a player is so important. And so the next question I want to pose, considering this topic is, let's say in this hypothetical world, the Eagles still have all 4 picks. Howie Roseman, he hinted at it in his press conference on Monday, how he didn't want to create a roadblock with more free agent signings because of all the draft picks he has. He doesn't want to have red shirt after red shirt after red shirt with his 2022 picks. He wants a lot of these rookies to start. So let's say, he hints at it, keeping all their picks, but at the same time, he says that, but this team is always going to select linemen, even when they don't need them right away. even if they have to redshirt them like they were planning on with Landon Dickerson, and they did for the most part with Milton Williams in 2021. Let's say they take an offensive lineman and a defensive lineman with 2 of those picks. If you could guarantee me that 2 other positions go at corner, receiver, safety, linebacker, running back, tight end, quarterback, whatever it is. And again, quarterback's a different discussion because it opens up a whole nother can of worms. But the other positions, guarantee me 2. Which ones do you want? And this is kind of a similar discussion because to me, I would say, although it's not though, because like I think a safety or a linebacker would make the biggest impact in 2022, but I would rather be guaranteed a receiver is drafted in the first or second round this year compared to linebacker. Because I think, and I know that that's probably more of a likelihood with the Eagles and philosophically what they do as a football team in the draft, but I think it also has to do with what prospects are going to be available, the strength of the class. I think when you look at it, outside of Devin Lloyd and Nakobe Dean, after that, I don't really care if you take a linebacker. I'm not saying Kazir White, Davion Taylor and TJ Edwards stop you from taking a linebacker, but those are 3 young players coming off career years. I'll be okay if that's all they do this year. I think having a Devin Lloyd can make a big impact more than another receiver would. But when it comes to, Christian Harris, Chad Muma, heck, even Dean and Lloyd, I'd probably rather have a prospect like Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave, Treylon Burks, Drake London, Jamison Williams, Jahan Dotson, Christian Watson. I just rattled off 7 receivers that are worthy of first-round picks that to me are all worthy of being in consideration for one of those, 3 first-round picks the Eagles have. And the likelihood is there's going to be multiple prospects that I just mentioned at receiver that are going to be available. And they're going to be some of the best players available on your board. So again, safety is one. I want to guarantee they get a safety. I think that is so important that between Kyle Hamilton, Jaquan Brisker, Lewis Seen, Jalen Petrie, those 4, I think you have to come away with at least one of them. You have to. So safety, I need guaranteed they're going to invest there and not run it back with Harris McLeod and Marcus Epps next year. Just don't want that. And then if I could guarantee one other position is picked, I would say receiver, just because I think there's going to be too much talent to pass up. Not that it could have a bigger impact than linebacker or other positions, cornerback as well. But I think based on, all these things, these variables that we're weighing, need, the value of the position, the prospects that could be available, I would rather have one of those receiver prospects guaranteed to come than a corner or a linebacker, just based on who I think could be there, because those players are going to be too good to pass up. And it's not like, although again, I think the bigger way this passing offense takes another step is with what they have in-house at quarterback and receiver. At the same time, they could use another wide receiver. So let's see what our listeners had to say on this one. Hollywood Reg, King Leo on Twitter, safety and wide receiver. He agrees. Chris wrote in cornerback and wide receiver. Cornerback's interesting. Cornerback, I really like Ahmad Gardner. I really like Kyer Elam even. I think he is worthy of that 19th overall selection. Derek Stingley to me is, I think people are just thinking too much about him now because he hasn't played in a year. And I think they're overthinking Stingley. I think he's a top 10, top 15 prospect that if he fell, I'd be all over that. But after that, it's like there's a pretty big drop off. When it's Elam, Trent McDuffie, Roger McCreary, then I'm thinking Tariq Woolen starts to get into this conversation, and you have Darius Slay and Avonte Maddox. I do think that safety and receiver would be the 2 positions that I target. But I hope, again, and I'm not saying the Eagles should not always prioritize the trenches. That is the way to build football teams, to build the pillars of their foundation, is with quarterback, with the line play, and then with pieces that help the passing game on offense or help stop the passing game on defense. But to me, at the same time, you do have to invest eventually some high draft assets and money in these other positions because they are still important. Like having a safety in the modern day NFL, like a Malcolm Jenkins, is so important considering the weapons, the versatile weapons that NFL offenses have. And you need that kind of speed. You need more cornerbacks. You need receivers. And so I know the Eagles are always going to take linemen, but to me, it's like when you have, especially with an opportunity this year, when you have 4 picks, I really hope that they do focus on these other spots. Not that they shouldn't take linemen, and not that they won't, because they're going to, but I hope they just, don't do the status quo with everything else. And, I heard somebody say, like, I wouldn't be surprised if they had George Karlaftis and Devon Wyatt as 2 of their picks this year. Like, I don't know. That to me is just very uninspiring and too safe considering the opportunity you have this year. I'm not saying take a linebacker in the first round, but, I really hope they don't just take a defensive tackle, an edge rusher, an interior offensive lineman, and then, a wide receiver. And that's normally what they do. But I think eventually there does come a time, especially when you have flexibility like they do this year, where you take a safety early. You can take a linebacker. You can do other things. And so it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I cannot wait to get to the draft. We are less than a month away. Make sure for 5 episodes a week of Locked On Eagles, subscribe to the podcast wherever you get the show. We're free and available Monday through Friday in video form as well on YouTube. And we're on Twitter, always talking birds, at Locked On Birds and at DiBiase LOE. Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Now make sure your second listen is the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast with Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker. It's free and available wherever you get your shows. I'm Louis DiBiase signing off. As always, thank you for downloading. Thank you for watching and listening. And let's go Birds.